Okay, let's get started. So this presentation is about healing deep fears and childhood traumas. And my main intention in this webinar is to impart wisdom so that you can improve your life. Okay? Now, our human mind is very tricky place. It can take you to places where we don't want to go. So self-realized or realized knowledge and wisdom is essential for healing purposes. Imagine you're walking blindfolded and you want to go to the North Pole to meet Santa Claus, but you don't have a good sense of direction and you're going east. Now, what do you think will happen? Will you ever reach your goal? No matter how long you travel, no matter how much hard work you do, you will never reach your goals, correct? So it is super critical to have proper wisdom. Just our intuition and feelings are not enough because they're not fine-tuned enough. Now, very briefly about my background. I was born and raised in India. I grew up in a very highly dysfunctional family. I was always scared, isolated, terrified, lonely. However, I developed a very deep interest in spirituality at a very young age. I got to meet many spiritually advanced teachers in my life. I was very blessed to have been personally taught by some of the greatest self-realized teachers that the world has ever seen. On the left hand side is Goswami Kriyananda, who was in the lineage of Yogananda Paramahansa, which many of you may know, is the author of the world famous book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Then I came to the US in 1990 to get my master's in engineering. I worked at Motorola for 16 years, where I was a pioneer in the development of 3G and 4G cellular systems. Then eventually I became tired of the corporate world and I decided to follow my passion. I spent many years developing the spiritual knowledge and wisdom under the guidance of many different teachers. And I left Motorola in 2008 to follow my passion. I have always been fascinated by the infinite potential of human mind. And believe it or not, every human being is endowed with the power to create any miracle they want to. But it does require a lot of work. Now, fear is the biggest block in creating miracles. And that's our theme of our presentation. Fear is an extremely creative force on the negative side. It is the root of all negative emotions, right? It is the root of all physical challenges, physical problems, and any challenge in life can be traced back to fear in some form and shape. At the deepest level of our being is the divine self, the Holy Spirit within us. Each one of us has it. This spirit within us is capable of performing any miracle that it chooses to. This God self gets covered by layers upon layers of confusions that are the cause of our fear, of the fears. So the journey of life really is to clear up all these layers of confusions and fears so that the divine light can shine through us. To say that this journey of self-discovery is extremely complex and difficult is an understatement. I'm sure you have all experienced the difficulties and complexities on this very confusing journey. And to help you clear up these layers of coverings, I like to use the framework of human identities. And all of you have probably heard me talk about identities quite a lot. And I'm big into it. Our deepest self, deepest layer on top of the soul is our I am. It's the I am that creates our reality. Your I am is a magnet that attracts things into our reality. Each one of us has many layers of identities and several different types of identities. Many of these I ams are visible to us and many are not. For example, our career-based identity, such as I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a police officer, these are visible to us. Then our family identities, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a son, these are also visible to us. However, our deeper personality identities are less visible. For example, I'm smart, I'm stupid, I'm kind. They're a little less visible. Then there are even more deeper hidden identities that are even less visible to us, especially the negative ones. I am evil, I'm guilty, I'm bad, I'm wrong. These are the deeper layers that are usually hidden from us. And we're going to talk about them. And at the deepest layer is our divine I am. So if we are able to clear up our outer layers of identities which are obscuring the divine identity, then our life becomes better and better. But I want to tell you there's a huge difference between an intellectual knowing of our identity and deeply realizing our identity. So I was at how do these identities show up in our physical reality, right? What are the layers? So at the deepest layer of our being is the soul, and on top of it is the covering of the layer of identities, like my I am. Then that layer of identity is what generates at the next level into our energy layer. Our energy body gets generated from the identity. So like you can see, like if somebody is a doctor, their energy, when you see the doctor, you'll see the energy of the doctor demonstrating that he's a doctor. So he's feeling that. So the energy layer is next, and then on top of the energy layer is the emotional body and the mental body. The emotional body and mental body are roughly the same. And then on top of it is the physical body. So if there is a back pain in your physical body, it can be traced back into your I am. If you go through the layers, you will see that it's just percolating through the layers till it comes into the physical layer. So to really heal our life, we need to heal all the layers, but most importantly, we need to heal the I am layer. As long as the I am layer is not healed and you just work on, let's say, the energy layer or the emotional layer or the mental layer or the physical layer, the problems will keep coming back. There'll be recurring problems. So the point I'm making, it is very important to heal the I am. It's the most challenging thing to do, but it is also the most fulfilling and the most permanent thing to do. So if you truly want to heal permanently, that's the place you want to work as well. So the three layers of identities, let's talking about that. The first layer of identity is your deepest layer, the divine layer, the divine self, the true shining part of you. This divine layer has all the properties of the divine: powerful, extremely confident, healthy. The divine layer cannot be sick. Fulfilled, happy, abundant, loving, caring, all-knowing, and so on and so forth. So do you guys want to see the God right now? Just put a mirror in front of you. Okay, very good. And that it's not a joke, it's truth actually. You just don't realize that. We don't realize it yet fully, but it's the truth. Now, the next layer of identity, which is very crucial for our healing purposes, is the wounded I am. Now, this layer gets formed exactly between the ages of 2 and 3. Not before 2, not after 3. Now, why is it precisely between these two ages? Let me very briefly tell you. It is because between the ages of 2 and 3, the child for the first time becomes remotely self-aware. That means it starts to, for the first time, it sees itself in the mirror. Imagine you're seeing yourself in the mirror for the first time ever in your life. And you look at it and say, oh my God, this is who I am, right? So that mirror, what is being reflected to you, because the child doesn't know who he or she is, it is looking for that image from the parents. So the first time it sees its image, it creates a very lasting impression on that child. Very lasting impression. And such a lasting impression that the child really starts to identify with it. That this is who I am. Good or bad, this is who I am. And changing that identity is not an easy task. Now, during this time, let's say you hear your mother and father screaming at you for whatever reasons. They may have been screaming at you for no rational reason. They were just upset, they were fighting with each other, and they yelled at you, let's say, as an example. Now, this very simple event, and there can be much more complex events other than this, very simple event can create a trauma in the child's mind that I am not loved, or now I'm not good enough, I'm not bad, I'm evil, whatever the case may be. And this becomes a lifelong trauma in the consciousness of the mind of the child. This is the wounded I am. Now, because it happens so early in life, 99.9999% of the people will not remember it. The trauma itself. They may remember some events, they will not remember the identity that got created. Okay, so let's talk more about that. What also gets complicated is that we create layers on top later on, and we're going to talk about the coping I am. So for the first time when the child sees its own image through the eyes of the parents, this is what becomes its identity in this lifetime for most practical reasons, unless you really do the work to change it. So if the child sees I am loved, believe me, the child will have a good life, right? Because this identity, I am loved, will constantly attract things that are loving to this child. Loving parents, loving partners, loving situations, conditions, whatever. But I'm guessing if you're here, you didn't feel that. So, yeah. So going a little bit more on this topic, So protection is a very key aspect of a child's growing up. Protection and nurturing. That's why we're given two parents. The protection from the father and nurturing from the mother. So imagine a baby plant. It needs protection and it needs watering, nurturing, right? Either of these are missing, the plant will not survive. So it doesn't get the protection, it will get eaten up by the predators like rabbits and stuff. If it doesn't get the nurturing, the love and the water, then it'll die, of course. So both protection and nurturing are required for the child or the plant to grow properly. Now, in the growing years, the child does not have strong boundaries to protect itself, right? That's why we need protection from a parent. Now, what happens, and I hear this from so many clients, what happens if the protector becomes the predator? The protector itself becomes the predator. What happens? Imagine the effect of that in the child's mind. It is beyond imagination. It is beyond imagination. So in many cases, the trauma is so severe that the person will develop severe anxiety, depression, and all forms of health issues as they grow up. Okay, so this trauma that we just talked about can be so severe and it will generate very severe challenges in life. Very unlikely that the person will not develop such severe trauma, such severe situations later on. Like I have done it, I have been through it, and all my clients I've worked with have been through it. Now, at this point, I do want to make a point that there is a reason from a universal standpoint why we go through these challenges. And maybe I'll spend a few minutes later on. If you have heard from this famous poet, Sufi poet, Rumi, he says, it's through the wound that the light enters. So there's a reason for it. So if the child encounters narcissistic, controlling, wounded, or absent parents, then the child picks up a wounded identity. That's a given. I'm bad, I'm not good enough, I'm a sinner, I'm powerless. All these kind of negative I ams will get formed in the subconscious mind of the child. Now, believe it or not, most of these people, such as myself and other people, will over this period of time of their life will develop autoimmune diseases. And I've seen it in 100% of the cases where the child had some sort of a deeper wounded I am, it always develops an autoimmune disease. Why? Because the body and the consciousness has turned against its own self. And that's what the autoimmune is. Okay. I also want to make a point that it is not just external traumas, it's also emotional neglect can do the same thing. It's the same problem. It creates the same trauma. Now the next layer, let's talk about the next layer of identity, which I call as the coping I am. This is the awareness, or sort of an awareness or unconsciousness state that we live in. The coping state, the coping identity is our normal day-to-day existence that we live in. What is a coping identity? Because the trauma is so painful to a human consciousness that it will not survive with that trauma for too long. And that's a fact, almost a medical fact now. So the trauma is so large that the child, for a survival purpose, the human organism, for survival purposes, will find a band-aid to put on top of the wound to protect itself so that it doesn't get hurt again and so that at least it can survive. So that's a survival mechanism. And this is essential. And what is the most essential part of a survival for a child? Love, right? At least one of the most important ones, of course. Other protection mechanisms are necessary. But love is essential. Without love, the child will not survive for too long. So the child has to devise creative ways to get some love to survive. Simple. It's finding creative ways. And the creative ways are so creative that we really start destroying ourselves eventually. So they are very useful initially, but at some point in life, they're not useful anymore. They actually become very counterproductive. So imagine, or you know through your own life and through life of other people that you might have seen, what are the creative ways that children use to survive or to get love? The children can become sick, which is a very common way of getting love. When the child is sick, both the parents come running after the child to help the child, to give them some love. That's the only time they get love. Otherwise, the parents are too busy. Or the child becomes very unruly. They start to do drugs. They start to steal. Now imagine there are as many coping mechanisms as there are people in the world, right? There are different categories, and I've categorized a few of them. They're very common techniques that people use, and that's helpful to understand. So sickness, self-injury, drugs, stealing, addictions of different kinds. These are normally the normal, quote unquote, coping mechanisms. You may also be surprised that one of the coping mechanisms is over-accomplishment. Overachievement is also a coping mechanism. Why? Because the parents, and it's very common in Asian families, they really, really reward a child when they're really outstanding. And I've seen so many people, and including I'm one of them, I've really burnt myself in over-accomplishment, going way beyond what my capabilities are. Perfectionism. And that's not a good place to be. Okay. So just summarizing so far, a human being is a bunch of several identities. And some of these identities will conflict with each other. And different identities become dormant and active at different times. You may forget that you have a certain identity, but it will become active when it gets the right conditions. It's like the seed. The seed is in there, but it will not flourish until it gets the right environment. So, yeah, so if you will see in your lifetime as well, you will see your different identities coming up and going out because of the situation and the conditions you're in. Now, as I was mentioning earlier on, these identities almost get tattooed on your soul. It's not easy to take them out. And they continue with you lifetime after lifetime. They carry with your soul till you are able to do the self-work to purify yourself and clean yourself up through work, through support, through help. And that's the work, is to clear up all this junk that we picked up. Now, summarizing the 4 stages of life. There are 4 stages of life. When the human being comes into existence, they're essentially pure. They're reflecting their pure self, right? You look at the child and we all feel so happy looking at a child. Beautiful face, shining light through them, kindness, love, joy, excitement. Um, the faces are so pure, warmth inside them, right? So they are really reflecting their true self. They really don't have anything outside. Then between the ages of 2 and 3 exactly, their true self gets shattered. Meaning they think of it like a crystal ball they come with. Now somebody throws the crystal ball on the concrete floor, it shatters into pieces. Now it's not reflecting the same beauty that it was showing earlier on. Between the ages of 3 and 40, roughly in this time frame, the person is trying to put their pieces back together. This is a time where the person is really struggling to survive. This is a survival time. Put the pieces back together in some form and shape so that they can survive at least. This is not thriving phase. This is survival phase. And invariably, it's between these ages. We're just trying to find our way through life. Then after 40, usually, not always, after 40, usually, is when the awakening process begins. And the goal of awakening process is to become more self-aware and heal ourselves, heal our body, mind, life, so that we feel whole and complete. So it's the phase of finding wholeness. Between the age of the previous phase of surviving, 3 to 40, is the phase where we are trying to look for perfection. And perfection is not the goal of life. The goal of life is to find wholeness, which is very different. So after 40, we should be seeking wholeness and give up perfection. And we should be seeking satisfaction and happiness and joy rather than seeking addictions and fun. And that's the purpose of life. So how do we accomplish this objective of stage 4 of life? And I'm assuming most of the people on this call are roughly in that time frame, on these ages, roughly. So accomplishing well-being, accomplishing joy, accomplishing wholeness. And well-being at all levels, health, financial, relationships, we need all of it. Even one piece missing is not satisfying to the soul. The wholeness comes by integrating, accepting, healing, and integrating all our pieces. And this is the crux of my presentation, at least from a self-work perspective. And I'm going to go into more details on that. And we'll also do a meditation and a technique that will be very helpful in integrating your pieces. Now, the well-being of our life rests on the platform that is supported by 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are self-work, support from a realized teacher, and patience. If you have one of these pillars missing, your life will not move forward properly. I can guarantee you that. Each of these 3 pillars are necessary for proper growth and a happy and a fulfilling life. Now, as you can imagine, your self-work is necessary, right? If I'm not doing any work and I'm depending on somebody else to clear my karma and heal me instantly, that's living in a gaga land. It's not reality. It's not reality, it's gambling with life, essentially. Okay, so now self-work, as I briefly mentioned earlier on, is tricky business. It's very tricky. You want to go to the north, but you're going east, you'll never reach north, right? That's why you need some level of guidance from a realized teacher who has realized knowledge, not just book knowledge. There are just way too many teachers with book knowledge and intellectual knowledge. Okay. Our own understanding, our own wisdom, our own intuition, so-called, is limited. It can be very deceiving at times. So you gotta need support, but the right kind of support. And I can't even begin to tell you how many people come to me talking about saying, I've been working on myself for 40, 50 years on healing the anger towards my father who raped me when I was young. I've been working on this healing or on healing the anger for 50 years. I'm still angry. I don't know what to do. Or they don't even realize they're still angry. They're carrying a boatload of anger and making no progress. In fact, their life is getting worse and worse. And why is that the case? Because somebody told them forgiveness is the answer. Go forgive your father and your life will be better. Oh my God, I shake my head and said, oh my God, what nonsense. Forgiveness, don't mistake me. Forgiveness is a beautiful technique. Beautiful technique. However, if you use it at the right person at the wrong time, they will get destroyed. The tool at a given time, the right tool at a given time is necessary. Right tool. If I keep hammering this square peg in a round hole, I can hammer it for the rest of my life. To this person who has been destroyed by her own father, now somebody is telling her to forgive the father so that you feel better. It won't work. There are much better ways of handling that anger, healing that anger. Yes, I agree, anger is not the right path. But to heal the anger, we need the right tools at the right time. You cannot do it the wrong way. Okay, so the pillar of self-work. So from the ages of roughly 3 to 40, as I mentioned, we are trying to fit in. We are trying to adapt what is called in psychology terms, personality adaptation. So for example, one of my core wounds was that I am rejected by my parents. However, I picked that up. So I started to modify my personality in order to be able to get some acceptance and love from my parents. And this need is so strong that a human being will go to any lengths to get some love. And what was one of my coping identities? One of my coping identity was I am a victim. I'm the poor thing. I'm a poor thing. And I put on this mask of this poor thing to get some sympathy from my parents. Some crumbs of love and sympathy so that I can survive. And this victim and the poor thing identity becomes so strong that I couldn't identify with anything else. It's like I buried my head in the sand, that my head doesn't exist, right? All my good qualities got buried in the sand. So deep buried that I don't even know that they existed. I started creating sickness. I started failing in school. I started getting beaten up by bullies. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. Till I started doing the self-work in the support and presence of my masters, teachers. So I was given all these challenges as well for a reason, of course, because I had to learn and teach this forward. Very painful journey, but necessary. Now, I really want you to pay attention to this because this is a very important part. Simple, but important. So if I'm able to take the photograph of the consciousness of a person who's really wounded and has developed all kinds of coping identities, this is what the picture will look like. There are pieces missing from it. Why? Because first of all, we've been shattered. And the pieces that are missing are the ones that we buried. We buried them in the sand. That is called personality adaptation. We buried them to fit into the society, right? We buried them to fit into the society. So if, let's say, you're crying sometime, and the father comes and says, stop crying, or I'm going to give you more things to cry about, what are you going to do? It will create an identity that I cannot cry. I'm not allowed to cry. That I'm not allowed to feel my emotions. So the child at that time makes a commitment, a decision that this is the right thing to do, is to bury my part of me that is having emotions. So what happens to that piece? It goes missing from your consciousness, meaning your consciousness energetically at every level has gotten fragmented. Now, you come across 30 years later a challenge. Let's call this challenge a person has gotten cancer. Okay? And they go through their treatments and their part of their body has been cut out because it's got cancer in it. Now correlate this. The part that is missing from your consciousness is exactly the part that will be cut out from your body. Meaning the body is reflecting consciousness exactly, 100%. The consciousness is reflected in our physical reality exactly. So if due to cancer, somebody's body part has been cut out, it is because that piece is missing from their consciousness. If you're not making enough money, it's because a piece of your consciousness is missing. It has been buried for personality adaptation purposes. If you don't have a good partner, if you don't have something in your life that is missing and making you feel incomplete and not happy enough, it is going to be because there's a piece in your consciousness missing. How powerful is this? Just take a moment to accept and realize the intensity and magnitude of this that we just talked about. It's pretty deep. It does take work to realize it, but it's a pretty deep realization if you really understand and accept it. So now let's imagine miraculously this person who had cancer and his or her body part has been cut out, this person somehow integrates that piece in their back in their consciousness that was missing and that created this issue. Let's say they do that somehow, they're able to do it. Miraculously, that person will regenerate that body part because it's the law of nature that the body and your reality has to exactly match your consciousness. No less, no more. This is good news, isn't it? That we can really change anything when we do the self work. We do go inside in our consciousness and fix the consciousness while we fix other things as well. Let me give you two quick extreme examples. One example is of a lady who came to me when she was, I think, about 40, 45-ish kind of a thing. She was married. She had fallen down, an accident that almost broke her spinal cord. So she was paralyzed from waist down. And we traced back. So she worked with me for somewhere between 6 months to a year. Traced back her issue as a child where she felt she was not loved by her father. That was a wound. And the coping mechanism she used was to injure herself in order to get the father's love and attention, because sometimes the father probably came running to her to help her when she fell down. So she used that as a technique. Oh, wow, this looks really good. I get my father's love when I fall down. So she kept on upping that game over time. And she got married to a man who was also like her father. And she upping that game into more and more severe accidents till she eventually crippled herself. And after we did the work, we worked on better ways of handling the problem or healing her core wounds and healing her wounded identities and the coping mechanisms. In about, I think, 6 months to a year, she started walking again, which was absolutely miraculous. The doctors never could have imagined that happening. Another quick example, there was a Mayan, I think he was Chinese in origin. And he was a very highly driven man, highly driven. He had a son, a teenager son. And the son was always looking for father's attention. And the father was like just way too busy. He was traveling all the time. And eventually it came, and the son was doing whatever, like drugs, this, that, whatnot. Eventually it came to a point where the son met with a motorcycle accident and he went into a coma. And the father at that point, through some sister who was into spiritual work, he contacted me and we started talking about it. And I said, well, I know it's harsh and whatnot, but it's your own consciousness generating this accident of your son. So this event in his consciousness, that his son has met with an accident and gone into a coma, in his consciousness was coming because of his own issues. And so anyway, that didn't end well. Eventually I don't think he was even ready to go there. So eventually I told him, okay, pull the plug on your son. Why are you making him suffer like this? And he did not do that. He spent, I haven't heard from him after a year. The last time I heard was the son was still in the coma and they were doing all kinds of brain surgeries on him, traumatic stuff. And the father was so sad and he just didn't want to let the son go. And I said, okay, this is the right thing. Continue till you have to continue. The reason was because the son wanted the father's presence, love and presence. And the father was not able to give that to him. So the universe connected the two in this way, that the father had to give the love and attention before the son would pass on. Sad story, true story. So the healing work is all about integrating all our pieces of our consciousness into a complete whole, so that our true self shines through us, which is the true purpose of life. So what's the difference between the child who just is born and is shining the true self, and the person who has gone through all these traumas and difficulties and now realized and shining the self? What's the difference? They're both shining the self. Some people ask me, what's the whole purpose then? Well, the difference is the child is not self-aware. This person is self-aware. So it's the self-awareness is the journey. Pillar 2 is support. It's very, very, very hard to do the healing without support. When I'm in trouble, when I've got my shoes, I got to go to my teacher on a day-to-day basis. I got his text number, a number, I text him and he gives me an advice or tells me something. So support is necessary. Self-work is very important. Without that, you're saying, I don't even want this healing. Self-work combined with support, combined with patience. So the second pillar is support through a realized teacher. And I provide the support to my clients through Lifetron healing and my personal sessions. And I'll briefly talk about that. And then we'll do a meditation where we will discuss a technique and experience the technique of healing our deeper self. So remember the layers of consciousness, right? The I am layer. Lifetron healing is the only system in the world that works at your I am layer. All the other healing systems in the world work at higher layers. Layer of energy body, the layer of emotional body, the layer of mental body, or the layer of physical body. At least I don't know of any healing system that works on the layer of I am. And that's the challenging part too, because it can take some time to heal the I am layers. We are so attached to it, the layers. But it's the only way to heal the deeper self, the only way to really change our identity into a better person. Or it's like reborn. You die to your previous self and you're reborn. It's not an easy process, but a necessary process to really heal ourselves. I guess that's why God created death, so that we are a little relieved from this rebirth process. So the energy, the layer is like systems like Reiki and stuff, they work on the energy layer. Then systems like emotional freedom techniques and all these kind of things, they work on the emotional body. Then the psychotherapy works on the mental body. And the modern medicine works on the physical body. We need healing in all these layers, I'm not denying that. But the true healing really needs to come from the I am layer. Okay, the Lifetron healing is meant to clean up our consciousness from lifetimes of junk. The negative emotions, negative feelings, negative thoughts, negative beliefs. It works at the deepest layer so that all that starts to change. So when your I am starts to change, and you people who are on Lifetron will see over a period of time their I ams are changing. Their belief systems will change. Their thought processes will change. And they'll say, oh my God, I'm thinking new thoughts now. Less negative thoughts, new thoughts. Why is that happening? Because your identity is changing. And Lifetron healing is the healing system that works in the background without any conscious effort on your part to heal that I am layer. If you remember from the earlier discussion, How does a person become depressed, anxious, unhealthy, poor, whatever else? It all starts, at least in this incarnation, it all starts with the 24-hour presence of a negative environment, right? It's not that you're with your parents for half an hour and that you build all these traumas. It is because you were there in that energy of negativity 24 hours. 24 hours is an important aspect here. The child does not pick up negativity in just 1 hour, 2 hours here and there. And the healing will also not happen in 1 or 2 hours here and there. You do need a 24 hours presence of a positive energy or positivity that works at the deepest layers of your being to be able to permanently heal your body and mind. So all this junk in the consciousness that is coming from lifetimes, there's a lot of it. Imagine just this lifetime, how much you picked. Imagine 500 lifetimes before this. Combine all of that, see amount of junk you got. It's a lot. And to do all of that kind of healing ourselves is a ridiculous amount of time frame. You're going to talking about hundreds of lifetimes to clear it. So that's where my thoughts started coming in at some point, again, divinely guided at some point, that we need to find something that will make it somewhat easier, somewhat relatively easier for a person to traverse this very tough journey of life transformation. And what is worse, it keeps getting worse and worse if doesn't change. A sick person becomes sicker, a poor person becomes poorer. It just keeps escalating that way. So I worked at Motorola for 16 years, where I was one of the inventors of 3G, 4G cellular systems. And I also had the deep interest in spirituality. So one day I woke up and I said, if I can transmit wireless energy like this for communications, can I transmit a healing energy 24 hours a day? Because I realized the importance of 24 hours of healing. So that's where I started working on this healing system. So long story short, I developed a healing device that I call Lifetron healing device. It is placed in the city of Darjeeling in India, in the Himalayas. It's at an altitude of about roughly 8,000-ish feet. It's placed in the house of a friend of mine who maintains this device for me. And I connect, I'm in the San Francisco area, I connect with this device through the internet to program the device to send the vibrational energy, healing energy, to the person that it is intended for. So I need your name and your intentions. And what this device does is it harnesses particles of life energy that I call lifetrons. And I picked this term from Yogananda's book, and I like the term. Lifetrons. These lifetrons are particles of life energy that come from the realm of superconsciousness, the God self, if you want to call it. And that's why I also call them God particles. So this device harnesses these particles from nature, because these particles are abundantly available in nature, especially in a very clean environment like where I've placed this device. Harnesses it from there, programs these particles with your name and your intention, and then puts them back into the realm of superconsciousness. And because these particles are coming from that realm, which is omnipresent, omnipotent, it knows who you are, where you are at any given point in time, and it comes into your system, your consciousness, to heal your I am layer, your deepest layer. It will also work on the upper layers as well, so that your journey is a little bit easier. But that's the main purpose, is to change your I am layer. So in the constant presence of this energy, of these particles of life energy, your body and mind starts to change and heal towards positive. And this device transmits this energy or healing particles 24 hours a day to you. And I give an analogy, like if, let's say, you build you get your electricity at home, that electricity is generated by some generator somewhere, right? Either through solar panels, or through some water dam or some nuclear plant, somewhere, some plant way off. And it is transmitted through wires to your home. And that electricity is what lights up your home and keeps your home running. So similarly, this Lifetron energy device transmits these particles, so your body and mind starts to heal. And it is not intended for permanent use. The purpose of this healing system is to take you to a point where your body and mind is healed, and you can generate and derive your own life source. What happens is, because of these childhood programming and conditionings, our life source gets covered up and cut off from us. And with this healing system, your life source is restored because it clears up all that is covering you up. And then with that, you can start connecting with your own life source, and you don't need it after that. So it's meant to be a limited time thing. It does take time. It does take patience. It's not an instantaneous thing, or it's not very quick either. It can be, it's not necessarily quick. So I talked about these particles, and you can go to my website and see on my website, more than 475 Google verified 5-star reviews. This is not a small number. Many of them are video testimonials, but look at what people say. Read them. With all kinds of issues. There's not a single issue that I can possibly imagine that I've not worked on. I'm sure there is probably some. The last point I want to make about this Lifetron healing is an analogy. Say you want to travel from New York to LA, right? In this day and age, would you even imagine walking your way from LA to, from New York to LA, or taking a horse ride or something like that people used to do 1,000 years ago, right? We will, it's not only going to be extremely painful and expensive, it's going to take a hell of a lot of time and expenses. Imagine the places you have to stay and eat and whatnot. It'll take you months to do it, if not more. In this day and age, we won't even think about that. You would rather take a $150, $200 ticket and travel in relative comfort to in a plane. Now, it's not a perfect analogy, but it is not too far either when you really compare the reality of it. So why in this day and age, when something like this is becoming available, and more will come in the future, that we are going to take not take a plane ticket and do something like Lifetron healing and walk our way through it. So just as an analogy. Okay. So the next one is personal sessions. So as I mentioned, wisdom is important, very, very important. We can be doing a lot of wrong work, going in the wrong direction, and not reach our goals. So knowing, as I say, knowing the problem itself is half the solution. And most of the times we don't even know what the problem is. We think what we know the problem is. We don't really. I can't even tell you how many times I go to my teacher telling him a problem, and I didn't really understand the problem itself. Forget finding a solution. So in my personal sessions, there are two things that happen. One is imparting wisdom based on your current state of consciousness. So if your consciousness is not ready for forgiveness, you're not going to hear that from me. You're going to hear something that matches with what you need at this time for your growth. So that personalized help is sometimes very useful to put us in the right direction. Sometimes we are just looking at things the wrong way. And like there are, again, I'm telling you that my own experiences there. Sometimes I'm looking at the problem in such a wrong way and just going wrong down that chain, getting more and more frustrated. Whereas sometimes all I need is 5 minutes with my teacher and he puts me in the right direction. So that's a very, very important aspect of healing as well, that some help is important. The second thing that tremendously works in my personal sessions is is if I look at your true I am. If I'm able to look at your true I am, you will also be able to see it more effectively and easily. It's like I give the example of somebody transmitting, like one candle burning another candle, lighting up another candle. So if I can see your nature, true nature, then eventually it activates your true nature and you will be able to see yourself as well. That shortens the healing cycle by lifetimes. You know, some teacher has said that a glance by a self-realized teacher can take you forward what will take you 10 years of intense practices. One glance. Okay. And again, it doesn't happen instantly, but once the candle is lighted, you will see the direction changing. So that's the second thing that happens. The third thing is that we work together to bring to awareness your wounded I am and your coping I am. The more aware you are of these layers, the easier it becomes to transform. Because as long as they are in the dark, we can do nothing about it. And we think we know our problems, most of the times we don't. I also give you an affirmation during the session. That's absolutely a necessity for me, or like a very important part of my healing work. What is an affirmation? Affirmation is a key. It's a key that unlocks the door for you towards well-being. Now, as you can imagine, there are many keys. There are many affirmations, there are many keys, but there's only one key that works. If the key is even off just a little bit, it'll not work. Or if you're using the key the wrong way, it'll not work. So the key has to be very specific and very precise. And during the session, based on your core wounds and based on your coping mechanisms, I work with you intuitively and also work with you to test the key. We will work it together. We'll test it together. Which key seems to work for you? And if you find the right key, which may happen right away, may take a little time, once you find the right key and you use it properly, the affirmations need to be done properly, consistently. Morning, evening, consistently. If you do it, it will change the course of your life. Okay. So that's what the main, so my sessions are designed to be around these things. The third pillar, and I think I've got another 10, 15 minutes left, and I should be finishing another half an hour or 15 minutes roughly. The third pillar is of patience. Very important, very, very important pillar. And I'm saddened to see how many people come to me with this mindset that I'm going to get healed instantly. And I'm really sad to see that, actually. And with that mindset, they've destroyed their life. They've destroyed their family. They've destroyed their money, finances. They've destroyed their body. They've destroyed their time. All things destroyed. 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're made no progress whatsoever. In fact, their life has gotten worse and worse over time. And it's based on all these three pillars. It's not just the pillar of patience, but patience is one of the pillars. That is very important. And if you look at some of these, I hate to say this, but some of these healers who come and talk about, you're going to get healed instantly. I'm going to do all the work for you. You don't have to do nothing. Instant healings. Oh my good Lord. We live in an earth plane where things take time. We look at the seed growing, it takes time. It doesn't happen instantly. You want to get a degree, to get a job, you want to get a degree, a decent degree will take you 20 years, 12 years of school, 4 years of undergraduate, another maybe 4 years of graduate. That's when you get a real good job. So 20 years of work, patience, practice, money. Imagine the amount of money you invest in that to educate yourself. Then why do we believe that we can flip our life, our consciousness, which is 100-fold more complex overnight, or somebody else can do it for us? Can somebody else make you a doctor? Can somebody else make you an engineer? No, it's not possible. That's not the reality of this earth plane. And I'm sorry to say that. It's not real. It's not real. So don't fool yourself. Yes, there are, you can gamble. You can spend money to buy a lottery ticket for $1. And the chances of winning a lottery, this is statistics, 1 in 50 billion. 1 in 50 billion. You may win the lottery. I'm not denying that. It's possible. But are you willing to stake your entire life on a lottery ticket? Or you'll do the work? Which path are you going to take? The work is what is aligned with the universal principles. And even if you win the lottery, it is guaranteed you'll lose everything else. Why? Because your self-sabotage will come in. You have not grown. You have not accomplished what the universe has given you to the work to do. So please, save your life. Don't go that direction of gambling. Patience, patience, patience. Do the right things. Have all the three pillars and have patience. It takes time and patience to get to our goals. Nothing happens instantly. Very few things happen instantly. And even if they do, if you're not grown to that point, you will lose not only that, you lose everything else too. Okay, all right, we are on the final stages of meditation. Let's do meditation to heal or integrate some of our issues based on everything we have learned so far. Okay, if you like, close your eyes. I want you to bring one issue in your physical existence that is bothering you or bothers you on a day-to-day basis. Bring it into your awareness. Don't hide it, don't change it, bring it right into your face. This is what really bothers me on a day-to-day basis. And if this gets healed, I'll be in a better place or I'll feel better. Okay? Okay. Now, the next step is to ask the question, how does this challenge make me feel? How does it make me feel? feeling, emotion behind it. We are going to the next layer. We are going to find the emotion that is beneath this physical problem. What is the emotion? I want you to recollect that it is not the physical issue that is causing the emotion, it's the emotion that's causing the physical issue. Please remember that always. So any challenge in the physical world is a reflection of your own inner consciousness. That's the ultimate truth. So get in touch fully and completely with that emotion. Feel it. Bring it into your awareness. Don't put it under the rug, because that's exactly what hurts us. We don't want to put it under the rug. We don't want to ignore it. We don't want to look the other way. We want to look at it right in the face. This is how I'm feeling. Fully connect with it. Don't ignore it. Looking at it right in the face. Now give a name to it. You must put a name to it. I feel frustration. I feel anger. I feel depression or depressed. I feel disappointed. I feel angry. I feel jealous. I feel guilty. I feel hopeless. There may be many, but pick one. Pick one that feels the strongest at this point. Once you've got clarity on the name, now I want you to give a number to it. 0 to 10, how strong is that emotion? How strong is that emotion? So doing all these things so far, we are fully acknowledging and accepting the presence of this energy. We are not hiding it anymore. Hiding is what makes it toxic. Stay with it. Stay with it. Keep looking at it. Name, number. Now comes the very important wisdom. Bring into your mind this understanding that this emotion is just energy. It's neither good nor bad. It's just energy. It may be uncomfortable, but it is still energy. Neither good nor bad. So I'm feeling this emotion of frustration or anger or whatever, but this emotion is neither good nor bad. It's just energy. With this knowing, keep connected with the emotion. Still keep connected. Still feel it. But with this knowing in presence as well. It's neither good nor bad. It's just energy. Keep feeling it. Stay with it. Now do a check again of the level 0 to 10. You should see it significantly come down. And you would feel a relief in your whole body and mind. Just open your eyes and feel the difference between before and after, before and now. And this feeling will continue, or it may actually increase, or relief may continue and increase over some time. Now, I want you to understand the magnitude of what you just did in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The magnitude, okay? So the magnitude is that this piece of your consciousness, the energy that was sort of taken out of the wholeness, has gotten integrated back. So now you're more whole than you were before. You're more complete than before. It's included that piece of you that was buried, was taken out of you. So if what happens, again, it takes time to really comprehend this. But from a physical perspective, imagine that your hand is hurting. Imagine that as an emotion, right? And what we learn as children is that if something is hurting or is emotional, a problem kind of a thing, we try to take it off, bury it, hide it. And that's like saying, okay, if my hand is hurting, let's just chop off my hand. We want to heal the hand. We want to integrate the hand. But what our consciousness does, we learn to just chop it off. Cut off that piece of us. Why? Because we learn in our society what is good and what is bad. It becomes a judgment. The judgment will cut off a part of your consciousness. And you integrate it back through the exercise I said, and also through the realization. The energy of emotions is neither good nor bad. And if it is hidden, it becomes toxic. We don't want to hide it. We don't want to act upon it. If I'm angry at somebody and mad at somebody, I don't want to go and shoot them. But I have to feel it and integrate that energy back in the process, through the process we just talked about. But we learn it the other way. We learn to hide it because it's not accepted by the society. And in this process, we cut off parts of our life. And it becomes very difficult and painful journey. So this is your self-work you can do anytime you wish. Anytime a problem comes up, anything in your consciousness that comes up that is uncomfortable, you can apply this technique. Now this technique is not going to change your identity too much or too fast. For that, you do need some support and other work as well. Like affirmations is important. Lifetron is very, very helpful for this. And personal sessions. So combine all of these together and you can change your life. You can change your life dramatically. Dramatically. Okay, my friends, I think this was the end of my presentation. I have maybe 2-3 minutes. If somebody's got a quick question, maybe I can answer that, but I don't have to, I can look at the chat and answer some of them, but let me see if there's anything in the chat I can say. So Stacy is saying, a good question. You said to integrate the energy, I had a lot of energy to go through. Do we not release the energy? No, it's not about releasing the energy. That's a wrong understanding. That's a wrong understanding. That's an idea. Release is the same when we say, I'm going to release the energy or I'm going to release this anger, right? That is very wrong, actually. And that's the confusion I hear a lot, and I thank you for bringing it up. It releases is releasing, like metaphorically, I was giving the example, if my hand is hurting, let me release the hand, right? So that will never work. What we are trying to do is integrate it back. I don't want to, the energy itself is not good or bad. That's the point. The energy is a part of our consciousness. We want to integrate that piece back into our consciousness to make it complete. So when it is hidden and suppressed, it becomes toxic. Even love, if it is hidden and suppressed, will become toxic. You don't want to release the love in that sense of release. I understand what you're talking about. It is a way of looking at it, releasing. It may be a way of understanding it, that's fine. But releasing and integrating is not exactly the same things. Again, use your own judgment to see if it makes sense for you the way you want to see it. But it will feel like a release because you're releasing the negativity part of it to it. What you're releasing is the negativity. So you don't want to keep it negative inside. Okay, went deep into being unlocked toward this assistance and have I feel pissed off inside because of acceptance. I'm not sure of your question though. Pamela, do you want to come online and ask a question? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you, Pamela.
Okay. When I was doing that exercise, I thought I was addressing fear, and it went a layer deeper. When I first started the meditation, I thought I was addressing fear.
Okay.
Then it went into being unloved.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it was going there. And when I went into being unloved, it included everything from parents to even kind of being left out.
Okay.
You know, even by the divine, you know. So I went into the acceptance of that feeling of being loved, being unlovable, and being unloved. And it was like, whoa. So the number started off at 9. It dropped to let's say a 6, but it's still, it's unsettling to be that high. So I feel pissed off. Will that continue to dissolve down because of Lifetron?
Yeah, so Lifetron is a
in
separate...
the acknowledgement of the being. Okay. Well, I guess what I'm saying, because of the meditation and because of the acknowledgement of going from fear to the feeling of being unloved or whatever, the acknowledgement of that, will it lessen?
Yes,
will that feeling within me lessen?
Yeah. So Pamela, the whole idea is that these emotions, they are very strongly embedded in our consciousness, layer after layer. So as you're going through these layers, you're clearing up the layers in that sense, you're integrating the layers back. So when you transformed from, what was the first one you started with? The emotion? Fear. So fear transformed into, so the layer of fear was there. Then underneath the layer of fear was unloved, right? So you're going layer by layer, and you can repeat the process for each of the layers, and it'll get cleared up. It'll heal. So when you feel pissed off, that's the emotion you want to hold on to. See, at some point in your life, you were told, let's say, as an example, you were told that you cannot be pissed off for whatever reason. You cannot be angry, you cannot be mad, you cannot be pissed off, right? So you put a label on being pissed off as bad, right? And that label on top of pissed off being bad is what gets stuck, it's what traps the energy inside. So when you experience being pissed off and follow exactly the process, give a number, give a name, give a number, and the realization that it is energy, it's neither good nor bad, it's just energy, it's just an emotion. So when you do that, then being pissed off energy will get transformed from a negativity to a neutral state. And that will integrate that energy back into your consciousness. You will not feel pissed off after that. So you can try it.
Okay. So fear and unloved are two, how do I say that? Are two labeled, I guess I want to say, are not emotions, they're identities, I guess is the question.
No, so there are different...
I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question fully. Say that again, one more time.
Like pissed off is an emotion, that's anger, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Fear is an emotion, but unloved, is that an identity, not an emotion? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. I think I understand. They're all identities will also come up as emotions. So pissed off is also an identity and an emotion. So when you are clearing up your emotion for being pissed off, you're also integrating or clearing up your identity. I'm pissed off is an identity. They're all related, right? They're all just layers of it. Right? So when you clear up this emotion of pissed off, then you'll also at some point after enough work, you'll also clear up the identity I'm pissed off. And then you will not have this identity come up again and again.
Thank you.
Right? Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Very good question, actually, Pamela. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, my friends. I think I don't see any other burning questions. One question is from Noel. I just feel more guilty because if all were neutral energies, then I am the loser who's lost her life thinking it otherwise. Yeah, so of course, that's another layer, just simply another layer of feeling like a loser. So the question she is bringing up is, so let me read the question again. It's a good question. I just feel more guilty because if all was neutral energies, then I am the loser who lost her life thinking it was otherwise. Any help for that? I was certainly not told I couldn't be guilty. Yeah, see, no, this is, yeah, I know it's not simple. It's not easy. We got to go through layer by layer. So if you are thinking that you are a loser, that may be your identity, then that's what you want to heal first. And then because of that, maybe the guilt is coming up or something like that. No, you may not have been told you're guilty, or you don't, excuse me, don't remember you were told guilty. Who knows how it came up? There are so many layers that may have come from past lifetimes. So yeah, it takes work, it takes patience. So work layer by layer, work layer by layer. Well, you got eternity to clear up, right? So just keep going layer by layer. And this method that I described, you can apply to any situation and it'll take you deeper and deeper, heal you more and more. But you've got to follow the process very carefully. If you start missing the steps, it doesn't work very well. So, and it's tricky because we are so tuned to judgment. That's how the whole reality is based on. Duality. The duality is based on judgment. Good, bad, right, wrong, right? And I am sure people who come from the Christian world, and I love this about Christianity, from the Old Testament, which talks about this tree of good and evil, and the Adam and Eve ate from the tree of good and evil, and that's how they came down to earth, kind of a thing. And God had told them, don't eat, do anything you want, but don't eat from the tree of good and evil. What is that? That's judgment. But we are so programmed into judgment that everything in our life is dependent on good and bad, right? And that really takes us off from our divine self. That really takes us from our divine self. It takes work, it takes practice, it takes time. I'm glad you guys are here with me, listening with me all of this stuff. So anyway, I'm glad, and feel free to send me questions, and I'm going to send the replay for this. I hope it recorded. All right, my friends, take care. Good evening, good night, wherever you are, and namaste. Many blessings. Bye-bye.